When you hear the name Frankenstein, what do you picture? I'm guessing it's a monster. You know, green skin, bolts in the neck, this big lumbering giant. But that image, it's pretty much entirely from a century of movies. And it has almost nothing to do with the book Mary Shelley actually wrote. So today, we're gonna set aside the monster to find the man, and to dig into the really profound philosophical problem that makes this book so terrifying. So let's just start with a really bold statement. Frankenstein is not a monster story, at least not in the way we've all come to think of it. I mean, the creature is absolutely central, but he's not the subject, he's the catalyst. He is the walking, talking, terrifying result of a much deeper and much more human catastrophe. Okay, so if the whole popular image is just a misreading, what is the book really about? This is the question that unlocks the novel's true power. It's a question about creation, yeah, but also about abandonment, and about the danger of ambition when it's completely disconnected from responsibility. And as we're about to see, it's ultimately a question about ourselves. To get to the bottom of this, we're going to walk through 5 key ideas. First up, we'll look at the book as a philosophical thought experiment. Then, we'll get into the destructive nature of ambition. Third, we'll trace the absolutely fascinating education of the creature himself. Fourth, we'll pinpoint the creator's own warning to us, the reader. And finally, we'll be left with the book's great unanswered question, which frankly is more relevant now than it's ever been. So let's begin with what the author herself was trying to do. Mary Shelley wasn't just trying to write a scary story to tell her friends on some dark and stormy night. No, she was setting up a serious intellectual investigation. She actually called her novel a thought experiment. And what's so striking about this quote from her preface is just how clear she is about her project. She's not inventing new kinds of people or emotions. She's taking the elementary principles of human nature, you know, love, ambition, loneliness, community, and she's just dropping them into an extreme, totally unheard of situation. The question she's asking isn't what if a monster existed. It's more like what happens to the truths of our own nature when we push creation way beyond its moral limits. You know, Shelley starts her whole exploration not with Victor Frankenstein, but with the sea captain named Robert Walton, who's writing letters to his sister from the Arctic. And that is not an accident. Walton is a mirror. He introduces the central theme of the novel before the main character even shows up, this isolating, all-consuming pursuit of glory. And this slide really just lays the parallel bare, doesn't it? Look at their goals. Walton wants to find a new passage. Victor wants to create life. Both of them are chasing a kind of glory that will set them apart from everyone else. And then look at the cost. Walton admits, I have no friend. Victor realizes I was now alone. Shelley is showing us from the very first pages that this kind of ambition isn't just lonely, it actually demands isolation. It cuts you off from the very human connections that both of these men desperately need. This really gets to the heart of it. Victor's monstrosity begins way before the creatures. It begins right here in his workshop. He sacrifices his health, his family, his very soul for this one goal. He becomes a ghost in his own life. The tragedy isn't that he created a monster, it's that he became one in the process, losing all soul or sensation for anything except his obsession. Okay, now let's turn to the creature himself. Because if Victor represents humanity corrupted by ambition, the creature is Shelley's test case for human nature in its purest form. I mean, he is born with no name, no history, nobody to guide him. So is he born good? Is he born evil? Well, the novel's answer seems to be that he's a blank slate. And what gets written on that slate is a direct result of his experiences. His development is it's so systematic and deeply sympathetic. He learns about love and kindness by secretly watching this poor family, the Delasseys. He learns language by listening to their lessons. And then, in This Is a Stroke of Genius from Shelley, he educates himself with 3 of the most profound books in Western literature. He isn't some grunting beast. He becomes a deeply thoughtful, well-read being. But his education comes with a terrible curse, self-awareness. The more he learns about human society and affection, the more he understands his own profound, agonizing exclusion from it all. This moment right here is absolutely vital. After he finally reveals himself to the Dalices, he gets violently attacked by Felix, and his first instinct is not revenge. He explicitly says he could have torn him limb from limb, but instead, his heart just sinks with bitter sickness. He refrains now. That is not the reaction of an inherent monster. That is the reaction of a sensitive being who's just experienced a brutal soul-crushing rejection. The capacity for violence is there, yeah, but his first impulse is profound sorrow and restraint. And here, in what is honestly one of the most brilliant moves in the entire novel, the creature basically uses literary criticism to figure out his own tragedy. As you can see, he compares himself to Adam from Paradise Lost. He sees the parallel right away. Like Adam, I was created united by no link to any other being, but immediately spots the devastating difference. Adam was God's cherished creation. He was abandoned by his creator, left wretched, helpless, and alone. His evil isn't something he's born with. It's a direct result of this primal abandonment. So, after looking at both the creator and the created, we get to the book's central, enduring message. This isn't just a Gothic horror story. It is a profound and timeless warning, delivered, ironically enough, through the words of the very man who failed to listen to it. This is it. This is the thesis of the entire novel, stated right here, plain as day by a ruined Victor Frankenstein. The book is not anti-science or anti-knowledge. It is a warning against any pursuit that isolates us from our own humanity. Any goal that forces you to sacrifice your connections, your empathy, your ability to just enjoy the simple, beautiful things in life that Victor says is unlawful. It is a poison for the human soul. And it's the lesson he learned far, far too late. And that central warning leaves us with these powerful, haunting questions. Questions that feel more urgent today than they did 200 years ago. What do we owe the things we create? Whether that's an AI, a piece of art, or a new company. Where is that line between progress and hubris? And maybe the most uncomfortable question of all, when a creator abandons their creation and we see the consequences, who's the real monster? The creation that lashes out, or the creator who just walked away? This brings us to the end of our analysis, but it doesn't really bring us to a conclusion. See, the novel's full title is Frankenstein, or the Modern Prometheus. Prometheus, if you remember, stole fire from the gods to give to humanity and was punished for all eternity. Victor Frankenstein stole the fire of life itself, and in doing so, he created a problem that he couldn't solve, and that the book leaves for us to think about. And that brings us to the final question the novel leaves hanging in the cold Arctic air. Victor's sin wasn't creation itself. It was creation without love, without responsibility, without the courage to stand by what he made. He brought a being into the world, but refused to be a father. And today, in an age of artificial intelligence and genetic engineering, the Frankenstein problem isn't Gothic fiction anymore. It's real. How do we create without abandoning? How do we innovate without losing our humanity? Where is the line between brilliance and hubris? Mary Shelley gave us the warning. 200 years later, we're still trying to decide whether we're listening. If this changed the way you see Frankenstein, hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. Subscribe if you enjoy deep dives into classic books that challenge how we think. And let me know in the comments. Who do you think is the real monster in this story? And what book should we break down next?